Welcome everyone to Awesome Truth, a wrestling book club. I'm your host, Steve Semino, and with me as always is my co-host, Walt Schwenk. Hey, Walters.
Hello, Steven. How's it going?
My friend, it is going very well because we have special guests, plural, on today's episode. We have two guests, one of whom is a former wrestler. It's very exciting to have these two. We'll get you right to it. It is Arn Anderson, Hall of Famer, Four Horsemen original, and then Dirk Manning, friend of the show. And they're here to talk about their comic book they're putting together, Walt.
Yeah, another comic book, another wrestler doing a comic book, and Arn Anderson
Yeah?
and friend of the show, Dirk. You really can't. It was a no-brainer for us.
Yes, we were very excited to talk to them. It's on Kickstarter right now, so we mentioned this a million times in the episode. Go find it, back it. It's called Arn Anderson, My Life as the Enforcer, and it's open until the middle of December. So go to Kickstarter, find that project, back it, get involved, and if that doesn't sell you enough, listen to the rest of this interview with Arn Anderson and Dirk Manning. We are so excited to have two special guests on today's episode, here to talk about their Kickstarter for the graphic novel Arn Anderson, My Life as the Enforcer, which is currently live and open for pledges until Friday, December 16th. Please welcome friend of the show, Dirk Manning, and WWE Hall of Famer Arn Anderson. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, hello, Steve. Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you both, man. It's a pleasure to talk to you again. I'm glad we can make this work. I know we last talked when we were doing butts and seats. It's good to come back and chat with you guys again. Thank you.
Yeah, and so it has been a while. I think it's been about a year and a half since we last checked in, talked about the Butts and Seats Kickstarter, and since then, congrats on Butts and Seats coming out, and great. We loved it. We talked about it in a previous episode, and so I guess Dirk and Arn catch us up since then. Talk about just how you guys got connected and the kind of the genesis of this new project.
Dirk, lead the way.
I was gonna say who's leading this one. No, after we wrapped up Butts and Seeds was an incredible campaign and things like that. And Mike Dawkins is really, I think we talked about the one that kind of put that whole deal together. And as that was wrapping up, Doc reaches out to me again and he goes, Arn Anderson's interested in doing a book as well. And real talk, I wasn't sure how much more I would be involved in the world of working with, professional wrestling talent on comics. I mean, it was really cool to work with Tony. And I thought, wow, this is a neat opportunity. I'm going to get back to my horror stuff and some of the other stuff I do. But when Arn Anderson comes knocking, it was like, here we go again, and that was it. We had do you remember, Arn, where we all had that dinner? Was that in Florida?
No.
Where was that? Or Chicago? Maybe. No.
No.
We had dinner somewhere.
We had parts unknown.
What was that?
Yeah, dinner. We had kind of a secret dinner. Yeah, I didn't publicize it at the time, but we talked, and
I can't. The cities run together for me, guys. I've been to so many towns.
Yeah. Oh, I bet.
The years are starting to run together. It's one of those things, but it was, it was just an informal deal to just kind of shoot the breeze. To be honest with you, this thing started just on an off the wall comment. I heard that Tony was doing a comic, and I just said something like, well, hell, if Tony can do a comic, why in the hell wouldn't I have one? But it was just being a smart ass. And I think Dawkins, took it and ran with it.
Yeah. And it's been a cool experience. Like I said, I didn't necessarily anticipate falling into this world again, and having dinner with Arn and talking to him and stuff like that. Initially it was kind of like, well, now that I've done one, maybe I can project manage someone else doing one with Arn. And when I met Arn and we had that, like I said, just an informal dinner in an undisclosed location and parts unknown, you know, it was just so much fun talking to him. And I realized pretty quickly, I'm like, man, I want to work with him on this story. He has such a fascinating story. And I was like, well, tag me in. Here we go again. And here we are. And it's yeah, like I said, the campaign is funded. We're unlocking stretch goals right now, and working with Sean Daly and Colm Griffin and the illustrations on this one, taking a little bit of a different approach than we did with Tony's book, obviously, because Arn's his own guy and his own story. But it's been a really cool experience, you know, and we're really grateful for all the support we're getting on this book as well.
Absolutely. Arn, I know you wrote a book before. You obviously have your podcast in 170 episodes. That's, you've told your stories a bunch of times on there. Why a comic book? Like, obviously you said if Tony can do it, why can't you? But like, why this medium? Do you like comics? Like, I can't really picture the enforcer reading a comic, but maybe you're a huge fan and we just don't know that about you.
Well, I did as a kid, like most kids, I think, would love comic books, but it was more of a, you know, when Dirk started talking about what his vision was for it, it was, people have asked me over the years about 3 questions. When are you going to write another book? Where's Ole? Yeah, of all things. And, you know, those 2 things come up. And the main thing was, when you're going to write another book. And it never felt right to me, because I'm still trying to be active in the business to the degree that I can help my son Brock. That's my whole goal of everything. So I'm not officially retired. I'm still out there a little bit on AEW. I'm still under contract, trying to get him, you know, settled into the business. So I thought, well, you know, why not? And it's not going to be a War and Peace. It's not going to be 500 pages. Should be a tight enough read, and you know, that you don't get bored with it. But there's some things in there that I didn't get to be on TV as a wrestler in an easy path. You know, it was a difficult path as a kid, and you know, there's some things that I could share with people that think they're probably by themselves and probably alone, and they're the only ones this stuff happening to. Well, it happens to everybody. And as you get older, hopefully you get wiser and kinder. And if you can help some folks out there, as well as entertain them with your life story. And the reports we've been getting since we switched the podcast to walking through my life in the business, pretty much, has gotten good reviews. So if I can help somebody, let's do it. That was the main motivation for
it. That's interesting that you said that, like, you learned something from the podcasting world. And I'm sure just telling your story in many different forums, you probably learn what resonates, what doesn't. And then also Dirk, I mean, having done Tony's story, I mean, between the 2 of you, I imagine that there's a ton of learnings that we're taking into this new endeavor. And I'm just curious, like, what are some of like the things that you guys learn from, whether it's a book or podcast or a previous comic book, that you took into this and you're like, okay, we're going to make this different, better, stronger by implementing XYZ strategies?
Well, on the podcast, the whole theme is we walk through my career month by month, year by year, and you live each day with me. And I go back and now I've got to relive that schedule. And even though I know, like I can tell you in 86, I worked 336 days, not wrestled times, Saturday twice, Sunday twice. So I don't know what that total would be off the top of my head, but it was, as we're walking through my schedule of Jim Crockett and all the wrestling companies that I work for, it gives people that didn't think about it, they went, wait a minute. Monday, you were in Miami. Tuesday, you were in Newark. Wednesday, you were in Idaho. Thursday, you went all the way back to somewhere northeast. Saturday, you were all the way back to the West Coast. And it lets fans who had no idea, that just like we all did, thought that the genie just rubbed a bottle and blinked you to these towns. The travel is unbelievable, guys. It'll mow you down if you have flown quite a bit. You know how hard travel is. Well, back in the day, I mean, start counting the hours in the air and stuff, and see how difficult it was, just that part of it. And I think that wakes a lot of people up. When I see them at these signings and stuff like I just did over the weekend, WrestleCade, one of the things they say is, man, I like the podcast, but God, I had no idea you guys travel like that. So it's an eye opener. I think gains the talent even more respect from the fans than what they had. So that's a real upside.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because as you guys mentioned, because Arn has this very successful podcast where he is laying out his career a month at a time, it was like, I don't want this book, which you can pre-order now at arncomic.com. Get the Kickstarter exclusive hardcover, all the autographs, the only way you can get the fancy version. But I didn't want the book to be the illustrated podcast. Conversely, I also didn't want it to be comic book drawings of Arn's best matches of his career, right? The WWE network is out there. YouTube is out there. There's all this stuff. So what in meeting Arn and talking to him a little bit, what became very evident to me was that his life story in and of itself, including his in-ring career, is fascinating, and how much his early life, which I know he talks about some on the podcast, but I don't think some of the stuff we talk about in the book informed the performer and the athlete and the talent and quite frankly, the man he is today, the coach, the husband, the father. And these are all things I wanted to kind of thread through the book. And what became evident to me right away, and again, I don't want to keep drawing these comparisons, but because we've been on about the other book before, with Tony's book, we took very much an anthology approach. Every chapter was a different artist, a different art team, and it was a different snapshot of different points in his life. With this book, with My Life as the Enforcer, I knew pretty quick that I wanted to have two artists, and only two. I wanted to have a modern Arn, and then extended flashbacks with a different artist. And I wanted to have two diametrically different art styles as well, because that way, as you're weaving in and out of the book, you'll cut to Sean Daly, and Sean Daly's style is a little bit more stylized. He has a watercolor style, and that's your modern Arn. And then we'll switch over to Colm Griffin for these flashback sequences when Arn's telling his story, whether he was as a kid or in the ring. I've never worked with Sean on a long form project before, and always wanted to. And Sean, and I've joked with Arn about this before, and you'll notice I always tell this joke when Arn is far away from me, but Sean illustrated a book called Samurai Grandpa. And it's exactly what it sounds like. And to me, it was just like, man, now having him draw Arn, Arn is in better shape now than I'll ever be in my life, but the idea of this gentleman who is, a little bit older, but still an ass kicker, right? So to me, it was a perfect fit, and he has such a unique look. I'm talking about Sean's art style, or not you. Although your look is very marketable.
Yeah, Arn's got a great look.
Yeah, listen, old is not unique. I just happen to be real old.
And then for the flashback stuff, I went to Colm Griffin, who illustrated the Butts and Seats chapter in Butts and Seats, because he can depict all these different personalities and stuff. I don't want to say photorealistically, but much more in a style that's a little bit more realistic. And the flow of the book just clicked from there, and it became this thing where it's a gorgeous book and it's fascinating. And I will also tell you that there's stuff in this book about Arn's early in-ring career that, as far as me and Mike Dawkins and everyone else, my editor Gina Joe, we all did research. And don't blow it now, Arn, but it has never been covered in this podcast or anywhere. And it's in this book. And I'm so excited. I remember we talked about it. I'm like, Arn, don't talk about this again. We're going to save it for the book. There's some stuff that even I think diehard wrestling fans like Mike Dawkins was on one of our Zoom calls because we did this whole book over Zoom. And he's like, Arn, I've never heard you mention that before. And we were all Googling. Gina Joe was Googling. Mike was. There's no reference of some of this early wrestling stuff anywhere. So one more reason to check out the book. You'll learn some neat stuff about Arn's early in-ring career.
Wow. All right. Well, if there's no better way to sell than that, that sounds great.
At arncomic.com.
That's right. Arncomic.com. Arn, I did want to say, like, you have obviously your in-ring career was excellent. It was a little before Walt and I's time, unfortunately. Your injuries, we started watching in the mid 90s. So you were always a presence, but we didn't see you in the ring. We caught up with you, my dad's tapes and, YouTube, as Dirk said, and all the ways we can find you. But you've been around for just so much wrestling. You've seen four decades of just everything in the ring. Like, how do you condense all that into a story? Like, obviously you said it's not going to be War and Peace. It's not going to be so big. How do you pick stories out of just the you've seen the business just boom and change and grow in a way that you probably could never have imagined back when you started?
Yeah, 40 years. I'm one of the few guys, and I'm thinking probably count them on one hand, that has been here. I mean, I started in 82 and I'm still active, who has seen the evolution of the business to the degree that I have. I mean, for 19 years, I was a lead agent for WWE, produced a lot of matches behind the scenes. John Cena, Dave Bautista, Randy Orton, a lot of those guys. And, you go back, if you do a who's who list of from say 85 to 88, you're talking, some of the biggest stars this business is ever known. And then it evolved on from there into, I wrestled for 14 months with WWE, Tully and I, very successful, but completely a different world, completely different schedule. Then did WCW, which was a startup. We went back in 89 and they were a startup company. Ted Turner had bought Jim Crockett Promotions. So even though some of the talent was familiar, it was a whole different style of company. And we went back there and I was there 12 years before they were bought out by WWF, Vince McMahon. And then I had the 19-year run, and I've now been, believe it or not, Dirk, just feel like it's 3 years with AEW.
Wow. Yeah, time flies. And there was a pandemic in the middle of that, but still, that's wow.
And I think that's what kind of consumed a lot of that time, because even though we were on the air every week, it still was, just a small schedule and just trying to do TV every week with the guidelines that we had. Sometimes you could fly, sometimes you couldn't. Everybody was wearing masks everywhere you went. It was really, well, we all know, we all lived it, but it sucked the life and sucked the weeks and months and years out of us. For 2 years, our lives changed. So.
And I'll give you a lot of credit though, for the entertainment you provided for all of us during that time too, and not without a certain amount of risk. So that was always very appreciated too, to look forward to being a wrestling fan and knowing that we could still watch wrestling, is that escape was very appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I hope Tony Khan will, when the history books are open down the road, will get credit, because it was his idea to, instead of just shut the show down like everybody else did, to continue having the AEW television show, but having the extra, we call them enhancement talent, that it came in to work matches and all that, they became the audience.
Mhm.
And even though you only had 25 people sitting in the audience, maybe 15 on either side of the ring, and you shot it tight, you still were getting reactions. Which,
Right.
brother, if you've been out there in an open air arena during the wintertime when it was 45 degrees at 2 o'clock in the morning and you're working a match, you got to appreciate the fact that those bumps hurt twice as bad. And it was in the middle of the night and the days were long, but it was so Tony could put out that product for the wrestling fans, and he is wrestling fan oriented. And I hope he gets credit for it, because he was the only one willing to step out on a ledge and pull that off.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's what we're saying though, Arn, is you've seen, the 4 decades, I'm sad that, we had to wrap with that, you're coming, to your final days helping Brock out during this pandemic. But like the fact that you've seen the highest highs, you've seen the lowest lows, you've seen the weirdest weirds, you've seen some of the strangest probably human beings ever exist on planet Earth. And they've all been in your orbit for such a long time. Like, that's why we're so excited for this book, is just, I can't imagine, we've heard so many of your stories already, and the fact that there's more tucked away is wonderful.
Well, you have to keep something back. That's for sure. Right? Don't give away. What's the old saying? I taught you all you know. I just didn't teach you all I know. It's one of those deals.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because honestly, when we agreed to do this book, it was like, this could have been a 300-page graphic novel easily, because there's so much stuff, and I've never agonized so much about what to put in and what not to put in, but like Arn said, the end result is we have a 128-page graphic novel. It's reads fast. I don't say reads fast, but it reads at a good pace, and it's tight, and we cover a lot of ground. And I think part of that too was the fact that, again, knowing that we're not going to spend 5 or 6 pages doing a play-by-play of, Arn winning the television title for the first time. You can do that in a panel or two. You can show him, realistically, you could show years of a wrestling career on a page, depending how you do it. But there are bits like when Arn is confronted by the Wild Samoans in the shower, for example. We let that breathe. That's a scene in and of itself.
Thank God. We need multiple panels there. We need angles and visuals.
Yeah. And Arn, you'll be happy to know I did not let the artist draw you naked either. So
thank God. It would kill the entire wrestling business. Yeah, and being trapped in the locker room with one of the Samoans or both of the Samoans it's frightening. Let me put to you that way.
Well, between scenes in the shower with the Samoans and other exclusive stories from your youth, any other tidbits to be excited about for fans, for readers that we haven't touched upon? Any other nuggets that you guys have included in here that we should really be looking forward to?
I think believe it or not, one of the more intriguing parts of the book, I think, is going to be around age 15.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be a professional wrestler starting at 8 years old. And it is crystal clear to me when I started watching it. And the first time I saw it on television, I was hooked. And, I watched like most fans did for years. I was pulling for the good guys and mad at the bad guys until I saw, and got a little older, and I saw the team of Dick Slater and Bob Orton Jr. They were managed by Gary Hart and was on Atlanta TV, Georgia Championship Wrestling. And for some reason, I was just that particular day, it occurred to me, the bad guys are the ones making all this excitement happen. It's not the good guys, it's the bad guys. And I started watching from a different perspective. And I never looked at the business the same again. I became a heel fan. And that's the way I looked at the business from that day forward. And that was where most of my career was. Not a good guy. I got no good guy skills. I've never tried a drop kick, much less hit one. So, it's just, I think there's a lot of stuff early in life that people will have the wide eyes, like, God, I never knew that. And that'll kind of set the page. I think at the end of the day, you just have a respect that you didn't have, other than thinking, well, any good athlete could do this, it's not that big a deal. I think you'll have a new respect for the business and just how hard it is and just what all goes into sustaining a long career, I guess.
No, I think that's exactly right. And like I said, I mean, in a way, it was like by the time we get to Arn's in-ring career, because the book covers his early life and then his in-ring career, and the book, spoiler, ends for now with the end of his in-ring career and a little reflection on that. But his early, Arn's exactly right. Of course, the early Arn stuff is very fascinating. And I think for people that know and love Arn as a performer, they're going to see how much his early life experiences informed the performer he became. And like I said, that eventually the wrestler became, the man he became. So I think that's a lot of that stuff I think is going to really take people back, and even people who aren't necessarily wrestling fans. The other thing I would say is in regards to the Kickstarter, which at arncomic.com is I'm really excited about these round one stretch goals that we're offering, because with the round one stretch goals, obviously, if you pledge for the Kickstarter exclusive hardcover, you get the book plate, which is a new piece of art that's going to go inside the hardcover. You can choose to glue it in or not. That's up to you. But we're unlocking, Arn very graciously let us do some mild gimmick infringement, the 4 horsemen of comic book signatures. So should we unlock all 4 before the campaign ends, you will get at least signatures by myself, artist Colm Griffin, artist Sean Daly, and then Arn himself. The reason I point this out specifically and I'm urging people to go pledge and support and get the book through the campaign, eventually there'll be a trade paperback softcover edition. Fine. But by getting the hardcover and getting the book plate, you're getting signatures from, I'm in the United States. Colm Griffin is an artist from Ireland. Sean Daly is an artist in Canada. And then, of course, getting Arn's signature. This is the most global stretch goal bonus I've ever done. And for people that like to collect signatures, to get all 4 of those signatures, I mean, the chance of seeing us all in the same place at the same time, I'm not going to say it's impossible, but you're going to be probably paying a fair amount of money to get to where we're going to be, and going to have to then buy a ticket to get in and wait in line and everything else. If you're going to get the book, you pre-order the book through Kickstarter for yourself or for another wrestling fan in your life, we have the potential to get at minimum all 4 signatures on this new piece of art for free. And it's a multinational affair. And that's a very, very cool thing. And I'm very excited about that opportunity.
Well, there you go. The hard sell. We love it. We love it very much. The Kickstarter is Arn Anderson. My life is the enforcer. Arn Anderson, Dirk Manning, thank you so much for coming on. We love talking to you.
Guys, we appreciate your time. Thank y'all very, very much.
Yeah. Thank you for your continued support on everything. And we appreciate you. Thank you.
So there it is. Arn Anderson, Dirk Manning together, combined forces, and latest tag team in the wrestling graphic novel world.
Yep. And well, we were talking to the interview as we were, going back and forth like on G-Chat, and we were just saying, man, just hearing Arn's voice, getting the Arn experience, having him address us, talk to us, answer our questions was just such a thrill. Like, we've talked to a few wrestlers on the show before, but just someone of his stature, getting him to come on was incredible.
Yeah, and honestly, I know a good amount about Arn Anderson through other people's stories, but I'm actually really excited for this to come out, because I there's probably a lot I haven't learned about or haven't read or haven't seen a doc on. I mean, so the way they were talking about it, it sounds like there's just a lot of interesting, fun storytelling and from his youth and his career that might not have ever really made it to a doc biography anywhere else. So I personally am excited, and I'm going to go watch YouTube videos of spine buster compilations as a result.
Yeah, Rick, Ric Flair takes up a lot of the oxygen in the Horsemen, and we've heard his story inside and out. But Arns is not one I know super well, and the idea that we're going to hear his origin, sort of where he came from, his beginnings, how he got into the business, what the business is like in the '80s, those are always wild stories. So I cannot wait to hear the ones I know of Arns and the ones I don't know. It sounds like we're going to get a mix of everything, and it's going to be great. So if you haven't already, we couldn't hammer this enough. Arn Anderson, My Life as the Enforcer, Kickstarter through the middle of December, but don't wait. Get on Kickstarter, back that project. Arn and Dirk would love you too. We would love you too. And there you go. It's another wrestling graphic novel. Sign it up. Get it on your bookshelves. Get the hardcover one. Do all the fancy stuff.
Yeah, and Arn Anderson in comic book form, I would assume is going to be visually more stimulating than Tony Schiavone in bound book form, but
No offense to Tony, but Arn was a wrestler, so that does seem to lend itself more to the graphic novel format.
Yeah, I expect more striations in his musculature at the very least.
So there you go. Go back that on Kickstarter. And of course, you can find our archives for more episodes, including more of Dirk in the previous Butts and Seats episode, the creating of, and us talking about it. That's all available at awesometruth.libsyn.com. For new episodes, subscribe to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher, all the podcast delivery apps. We are there. And of course, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at awesometruthpod. Walt, great to talk to Arn. What a treat. I'm going to be smiling tonight when I go to bed, just thinking about talking to a true legend. He came on our podcast. We were on a Zoom call with him. Like, why did Arn Anderson come on our podcast? I don't know, but I'm honored to have him.
Yeah, truly a pleasure seeing one of the boxes of the Zoom just saying Arn. I'm like, who else could that possibly be in the world? It's Arn Anderson or no one.
Walt was the last one to join the Zoom, and I made that same reaction when I just saw it at Arn. I laughed out loud. And I said, "Well, there you go. That's perfect. Yeah, I don't want any more information. That's all I need."
Yeah, it's needed.
Oh, it was the best. Well, thank you all so much for listening, and remember, the truth will set you free.